Hello everybody and welcome back. My name is Winback, and on today's episode of Run and Gun Radio, we're playing a brand new game. Actually, this is the beta test for a brand new game called First Descendant. And it is an incredibly graphically challenging game if you are not working with some pretty decent specs. So, what we're going to do in this video is play it with the absolute minimum requirement specs, see how it runs, see how it feels, talk about all the fancy new stuff that's going on. Before we get started though, this is a YouTube video, so feel free to like, comment, and to subscribe your heart out. And then we're just going to whip it out and talk right about it. Now, the minimum specifications for this game, according to Steam and the developers themselves, is a i5-3570 for your processor, a GPU sporting the GeForce equivalent is a 1050 Ti, I think, and then your disk space, you need 30 gigs. Not like that's a big deal for most people. And your RAM is going to be 16 gigs. No, 16 gigs is recommended. 8 gigs is the minimum. I am rocking 16, so I guess we're not using the absolute minimum, but you get where we're coming from. Anyway, all that being said, we're also playing the game on a controller, not doing the typical mouse and keyboard because that is really uncomfortable for me and it makes me want to throw up out of my eyeballs. So I'm going to do it the old-fashioned console way that I grew up on and try to have myself a grand old time. Now let me start off by talking about the graphics quality. The settings that we're on right now are actually, they're not very low, but I think they're set to low, at least low. Motion blur is turned off because it is horrendous. It is absolutely terrible, and it makes things run very, very, very sluggish. They actually had to patch in the option to turn motion blur off because I played a little bit last night at midnight, and it was not initially there. So, luckily, that is an option that can go down. I would highly recommend turning it off if you're running any specs like I am. Again, closer to the minimum requirements for the game. Next is there's no actual buttons and knobs. You don't get down into the nitty-gritty with the graphics settings for this game because it's only a beta test. I can only imagine once the game is in full release, it's going to have 100% of its graphical knobs adjustable, but right now all you can do is go from preset settings from very low to very high, and then after that you have the option to change your motion blur off, and then even further beyond that you have the option to deal with the upscaling for the game. Now, what is upscaling? Upscaling is, for lack of a better definition, going to render your game at a smaller resolution, and then I think AI, machine learning, is going to scale that up resolution-wise to make a more defined image. So basically, the computer is guessing at the higher resolution and filling in the pixels where it thinks pixels of the same grouping should be. This might be an oversimplification, but basically we're just taking a smaller resolution image, upscaling it to a better resolution, and letting the machine figure out the bits in between, and it's actually working pretty well. Now, based purely on my own clicking around, my own testing, and my own preference, this is the image that you're looking at on the screen is what we've ended up at with the low settings, and we're set to the XESS upscaling with a quality setting. So in your graphic settings, you're going to have either XESS or you're going to have I think it's like FLR 2.1, something like that. That's the NVIDIA option for upscaling. If you're using an AMD card, you have another option called, I think it's DLSS, and instead of the FLR version, you'll have DLSS and XESS. Just for the sake of clarity, just for my own preferences, everything that I'm doing in my game right now. Stick with the XESS. It's just the best as far as I could determine with clarity in the game. There's not as much line blurring. The lines are all high fidelity for the most part, and you can tell what's going on without any, dropped frames, or I won't say there's no dropped frames, but there are definite options to limit that, or it definitely feels like it's more limited than it is with the FLR or the other options. Anyway, all that being said, the game, again, still closed beta. You had to get invited to it, and the graphical options are incredibly limited. They are very, 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 very small. So don't hold this against the game. If you're at all interested in it, it is probably going to be, I am assuming, much better optimized and have a lot more, availability as far as your settings go once they actually full release. So that being said, the graphical options, again, the game still looks, I think, fantastic even at these settings. I don't really care about like all sorts of light bloom and crazy graphical stuff. I'm not really about to just sit here and pull it out to my graphics card. I'm just in the game to have fun. I like the visual style of the game, and I'm here to enjoy the gameplay rather than the prettiness. Now, I'm not going to say I'll play an ugly game more than I'll play a pretty game, because that's not true. I definitely like pretty stuff, but this game's art style and direction in and of itself is already fantastic. So they, I don't think, had to even remotely go this far graphically to have a lot of people's interest. So hopefully that's not a big turnoff for a lot of people. But again, minimum specs for this game are incredibly forgiving, I think. And as long as you have that 1050 Ti, 8 gigs of RAM, and the i5 3570, you're going to be just fine. So, all that being said, after the graphics conversation, we can talk about something that is a little bit more near and dear to my heart, which is controls. Now, for the sake of discussion, this game is only beta testing on PC at the moment. I do not know if there is a beta later on towards release planned for the consoles, but I'm sure once that news comes up, everybody will be telling you all about it. As it stands right now, though, for the sake of this video, this is a PC-only beta, so I have seen lots and lots and lots of people playing mouse and keyboard, and that is probably the best way for some people. It's super precise. It's just, I guess, comfortable for some too, but I, being that kind of millennial 90s kid, grew up with a controller. Every game I played had a controller. All the first-person shooters that I was playing, when those were popular or when those were fun to me, I was playing with the controller. And the aim assist, like snap locking, all that stuff was just easier. It just made more sense to my brain. I only like using my thumbs and then maybe my index fingers with the triggers, but really 4 fingers to me beats one whole hand and then whole hand number 2. It's just a preference thing. If you like mouse and keyboard, I'm not knocking it. I've seen you guys do what you do. It obviously looks really good and great, but I do not like shooters in mouse and keyboard mode. It's just not fun. That being said, this game's controller options, I mean, the sensitivity, obviously, you're going to have all that stuff. That's up to your own preferences. But aim assist is an option for the game. You can have it. I've been playing with it on because I'm fairly used to the way that a crosshair is going to snap to a target. But I also need to test with the option off, because the game, when you start getting into things like the void intercept battles, with the Colossus monsters, the big raids with the gigantic bosses, those have some really weird interaction with the aim assist. Wow, that's some heavy fucking lag rate. Obviously, some latency issues here, too. There is stuff going on between players online. There's only one person in the room with me. Well, I guess there's 4 people in the room, but there's only one person really close to me doing the same mission. So that's a little bit, whatever. Back to controls, though. So the aim assist in this game likes to target a lot of random shit. And because there are groups of enemies a lot of the time, that aim assist is going to snap to lots and lots of different stuff. Now, the good news is it is pretty forgiving. Pulling away, trying to aim at different stuff is as easy as, letting go of the zoom function. Hip firing is generally just very, very simple. The character that I'm playing, Ajax, is ultimately going to be doing a lot of close-up fighting anyway. So I don't have to worry about much because I like to use a shotgun, I like to use an assault rifle. I like to use a lot of stuff that doesn't require a whole lot of precision to do damage. So that's, again, my own playstyle, and my character really fits with that vibe too. He's tanky, he's a big brute, he's having a good time. Now, that being said, when your aim assist is, if you're in like sniper, or you're in, it's not battle rifle. I can't remember what kind of rifle it's called. Anyway, there's like a sniper, there is a zoomed in, there's like a scope rifle that is the midpoint between like an unsighted rifle and a sniper rifle. It's scout rifle, that's what it's called. It's called a scout rifle. But those are typically going to, they're going to be a little bit more difficult to get precise aim with, because those are the type of weapons that you want to hit people in the head with. You want to just go directly for the dome piece, and that is much more difficult on a controller, especially with the aim assist trying to drag a lot of those shots to the center of a character. So a lot of times when we're shooting enemies, it'll go center mass rather than go up to the head. So you have to compensate for that, which isn't ultimately super fun on a controller. So if you like scout rifles and sniper rifles, highly recommend mouse and keyboard. Anyway, the void intercept battles, though, what I mentioned earlier, are actually, since the boss is one huge hitbox, it's not multiple hitboxes, which is kind of silly. But the auto aim, or the aim assist, is going to pull your aim to the center of that big boss, and you're just going to be hitting kind of, I mean, you'll be dealing damage, but you're not dealing damage to the weak parts of the boss. The boss has big shoulders that you need to shoot and like de-arm. As a matter of fact, I am going to finish up this mission here in just a sec, so we'll pop over to the Void Intercept battle, and I'll kind of show you guys what I mean with the aim assist and how the fight works, all that stuff. It's pretty cool. But from the hub, from the main town, this is Albion. You'll just walk over to this man. He's the one who sets up the Void Intercept battles for you. We're on normal. Oh, look, the guide just came up for the first time since we're on our first Void Intercept battle with the Executioner. I think this is level dictated, but then the guide says something about a compass, and I am not sure if I picked any of those up, so beats me. But anyway, once you get going, you'll start unlocking more Colossus as the time goes on. Executioner being the first and definitely the easiest. And these will give you crafting materials to get new descendants. So my character, Ajax, right now is one of the starting descendants. He's unlocked because I picked him, and the other options were Viessa and Lepic. Both of them seemed cool, but Ajax is ultimately more my style, being what I would call probably the closest thing to a melee character we can in this game. Pretty badass. Now, going into the Executioner, you have to have teammates, so the game is matchmaking us with a couple other people, pulling us all together, and then dropping us in, syncing us up. After this 6-second start, we're going to just teleport back to where we were for some reason. Kind of weird. Hope that changes. Kind of annoying. But anyway, the Void Intercept battle is all about taking on the Colossus in the center of the stage in the Void. I really hope that this changes, because all of the stuff that we saw, all the like promotional material and video stuff for this game system, had them out in the world. And the world is huge. The world is awesome to look at. So I really hope this changes from just being here inside the void. Not that it's not cool. It's interesting. Super cool to look at. But I definitely think it will be more fun with the actual environment. So you can see here, these are the shoulder pads I was talking about. Those are the things you have to break to knock down the bosses. All the colossi? The game only calls them colossus in plural, but you know what? Whatever. When you break those parts off of them, they go into a stagger state, so they knock down, and you can just deal tons of damage to them. The trouble that you'll find out with the aim assist when it comes to controllers is that the aim assist wants to go towards the chest or the waist of the colossus. I was actually fighting the third colossus, the stunning beauty, and the game was actually forcing my cursor to its feet. So it was trying to get me to auto aim at the ankles, and that was a nightmare. Absolute fucking unbelievably ridiculous thing to do. But all that being said, I'm gonna stop harping on the controls. I have to bring that stuff up anyway. Oh, I got teleported. Oh, I got jump. There we go. And keep in mind that all the complaining that I'm doing about the weird aim assist stuff has not stopped me from maximum enjoyment of this game. I haven't talked about the game systems or a whole lot about the game itself so far, so with my honest opinions of the graphics settings and the controller out of the way, we can talk more about the game itself. The gunplay is absolutely phenomenal. I absolutely hate a lot of games in this genre because the gunplay just isn't satisfying. Personally, I could never get into Warframe because it felt like there was just a little bit too much focus on melee, and the art style never really kind of appealed to me. I mean, it was hit or miss. I could probably go back to it now and see if it's still that way, but starting out like 5 years ago when I picked up Warframe for the first time, it was just like, nah, that's not much. This game, though, takes me back to the days of Gears of War, where you could really absolutely feel all of the sound of the gun, the recoil, everything that you're doing when you're shooting in this game feels like it's making an impact. Not only that, but your damage numbers, you've got those lined up. I mean, it feels so good to have that kind of system on top of this immaculate gameplay, or gunplay. That being said, the guns aren't your only way to do damage in this game. You also have your abilities depending on the character that you're using. The Colossus goes down, and now we just get to pick up all of the freaking gear he dropped. Tons of runes, tons of items, tons of stuff. That is what happens after the intercept battle is done. No amorphous material. I think there's either no chance that you get it in normal or there's a reduced chance, but either way, amorphous material is stuff that comes out of these fights that helps you get new characters, new descendants as they're called. And then if you want to leave after the intercept battle is done, all you have to do is hit exit intercept battle and the game will load you right back in. No harm, no foul. Now, like I was saying earlier, the skills that you have depend on the character that you're using. With Ajax here, since he's our starter character, his abilities are, well, no, I won't say that. Everybody's abilities are definitely unique. Ajax is the de facto tank of the roster at the moment, in the beta anyway, because Ajax is the only one who is really, his abilities are tied to his health and his shield. No, his health and his defense. Maybe shield too, but mostly his health and his defense. Your big ones are going to be your reversed door. It's just an ability that you throw out. It's force field. that goes in front of you. As long as you're behind it, you can shoot outwards, and all of the bullets coming towards you will ping off the shield. Which leads into the second point about Ajax's kit. Probably the first one, if we're being honest, but his passive is a secondary resource. Ajax has what's called void energy, and that void energy is stored based on the amount of damage he's taking or damage that his shields are taking. And he's got two shields. So he's got his reversed door, which is his left bumper A. It's going to put this barrier down, like I said. And then he's got his hypercube, which is actually a sphere, but, you know, whatever. And that's just a big spherical shield that does the exact same thing as the reversed door, but it's a big dome, and I think it may scale better. May scale better based on the stats. But anyway, back to the passive, and then we'll yeah. So his passive, the void energy, means that Ajax can store up to 100% void energy. At 50% void energy, he can use that energy to buff one of his skills. You'll see at the bottom of the screen, occasionally those skills will light up blue, and when they're lit up blue, that means that we get a bigger, better version of any of the skills. So, if you have 100% void energy, you're doing fantastic. You can use 2 upgraded skills. Not only that, but based on the amount of void energy that Ajax has, he's doing either 10, 20, or 30% more damage. So if you've got a full void energy meter, you're doing 30% extra damage, unless you pop an ability that sucks 50% of that up. Also, if you're not in combat, void energy starts to dissipate pretty quickly, so make sure that you're keeping in the enemy's faces and using that stuff to the best of your ability. Now, as far as, again, the reverse door, all that stuff is pretty simple. The enhanced reverse door is actually going to reflect bullets at the attackers. So anybody who shoots at the reverse door is going to have their shots reflected back at them. I think it's for like 30% of the damage that was being shot at the door. Next is his ground pound. I think it's called Void Walk, which is totally dope name. Love it. And it's just a huge jump. It's just Hulk freaking smash. That's what it is. Ajax goes up into the air, slams down. I did a teeny one right there, you could see, but it's just a big AoE that stuns people and deals damage. And then the upgraded version is going to immediately give us 40% of our maximum shields back. And when I say shields, I don't mean like the reverse door or the hypercube. I mean like our actual character shields. That little white bar above our health bar is our actual shielding as a character. So when we use a buffed up, well, this is true for both your pound and your kind of roar explosion. You get 40% of your max shielding back immediately, and that's it. So I know that's kind of underwhelming now that I say it out loud, but all that being said, when you're using these abilities, you're jumping so far into the enemies that you probably want to have as much shielding as possible. And considering that Ajax's whole deal is wanting to take damage, having more shielding to protect your health is always a good thing. Now, the ground pound, the Void Walk is great. The next ability, the roar thing, it's just a big AoE explosion around Ajax. It knocks people back, doesn't stun them. At least I don't think it stuns them. The ground pound does stun them. This one knocks them back, and based on how big they are, they get knocked back further. The upgraded version, I think, does stun, but also gives you that 40% of your maximum shield back, which is fantastic. The two combo really well together. If you've got like a full 100% void energy, you can just rip a ground pound and then go in there and then rip a roar right after it to be a big AoE combo that shields you absolutely huge. You get 80% of your maximum shielding there, and then you deal a pretty significant amount of damage between the two as well. So it feels good to jump in and then to scream all about it. Woo! And then your last ability, the hypercube, like I said, it's just the reverse door. It's just a big sphere in terms of shape. And it does the exact same thing when it is enhanced. Except the cube, when it's enhanced, the reflected damage is 100%, I believe. So anybody shooting the cube, or the sphere, the dome, whatever it's called, is going to take 100% bullet damage back. So it's cool. It's definitely amazing for holding like choke points if you're having to fight enemies outside of a room and you need like a bunch of cover in the... Oh, good pound, good pound. Just gotta call those out when I see them, you know, they just feel so good. Anyway, if you're in a doorway and there's a whole bunch of enemies trying to get in that doorway, you can pop yourself a hypercube and just sit in that doorway, because they don't usually, ranged enemies will not try to rush the cube, but melee enemies will. So you can typically just shoot out of them and have yourself a fantastic time. Like this though, I mean the hypercube is smaller in width than the reverse door is, so the reverse door is much better at closing off wider chokes. But I mean, it's all kind of up to what makes sense at the time. It's really up to what you think matters. But yeah. Anyway, I got off track talking about Ajax and how cool he is. I'm trying to unlock Sharon. She is the next character that I really want to use because assassins are freaking dope, and I'm gonna be playing the heck out of that character. But anyway, Ajax himself is probably what I would call the easiest character to play in the game so far, because everything that he does is just... yeah, he's hard to kill. Everything about him is hard to kill. He does a lot of good AoE clear. He's got some big CC. He's just simple and effective, and that is what I'm looking for. Now, if I'm being a little bit critical about the game, I will temper that with the disclaimer that the game is still, obviously, it's closed beta. You can only play it so much. There's only so much going on, and I don't think any of it is particularly bad. There's a lot of stuff in the game that feels maybe a little bit grindy, maybe a little bit similar, which is fine. I mean, you know, I'm not expecting a full story explosive experience, but hopefully when the game comes out, some of these things change. The enemy diversity is actually really fantastic. I mean, there's obviously going from mission to mission, you fight specific enemies, but as these missions progress, I definitely feel like I'm finding new enemies, things feel different, and it feels like there are new ways to approach new fights. So that feels good, but it is ultimately just going from one mission, killing a bunch of enemies, to another mission, killing a bunch of enemies. Sometimes you have to kill enough enemies to kill a beacon, or sometimes you have to protect a beacon, or sometimes you just have to kill some more bad guys. I mean, that's just how the game is right now. And again, I'm not expecting much. It's still in beta. There's a lot of easy stuff to figure out between now and release for what makes a good mission. The story also isn't super compelling. It is pretty, I guess we can say complicated, but it feels kind of complicated for complication's sake. It also doesn't help that the graphic settings really make a lot of the NPC characters in town look dumpy as hell. So there's no big connection there. Some stuff happens in the story, and there's like some object called the Heart of Iron that is important, and the antagonist people that you're fighting, the Vulgus, who by the way look super cool. I love their designs. They're after the Heart of Iron to like destroy the world, but they're also fighting the Colossus, which are, you know, from the Void, which is the same place that the Vulgus are from. Like, there's a lot of moving parts going on in the background, and it doesn't necessarily feel super cohesive. Now, if they fix that, if stuff happens, like if some of the voice acting gets a little bit more, well, I'm sure the voice acting is all set in stone by now, right? But yeah, I don't know. Maybe you could adjust the story a little bit. The pacing is kind of monotonous. Then again, it definitely doesn't feel any different to me from Warframe. So maybe a lot of people like that story, and maybe I'm just nitpicking. But anyway, there's definite issues with the game, but I don't think that any of them are big enough to say, hey, this game sucks, I don't like this. I definitely don't. Well, as far as monetization goes, I don't really know anything about that because this is in beta. There is a premium currency for the game for buying, you know, new characters, but I don't think that it's going to be a huge deal. And I think that, well, in the beta, they're like, as long as you're completing missions, you're progressing in the game, they're like, hey, here's some premium currency if you want to use this to buy characters instead of doing the research missions to unlock them. So, I don't know. It's going to be a free-to-play game. There's really no reason to pick it up. Like I said, the specs are workable. Even on the minimum specs, things feel good. Controls, mouse and keyboard guys are not going to have a problem. Controller guys, yeah, I mean, preferences might be ruffled a little bit, but it's not bad. The game is fantastic. I'm having a super, super fun time, and there will be much more of this game on this channel over the next couple weeks, months, depending on how much footage I get from the week-long beta test. But that is it for me, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out. I will catch you next time.